Denying dignity. The impact of denying the basic rights of citizenship to LGBTQ members in African American UCC congregations. At the Religious Freedom Institute, during an intensive course titled African Americans and Religious Freedom, Dr. Corey Walker informed the group that a narrative on this topic includes religion, personhood, and freedom as key concepts in the discussion. In the United States Constitution Bill of Rights, the First Amendment stipulates, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Our conversation today involves taking a look at possible citizenship violations for African American LGBTQ persons in this country and in African American UCC churches. In order to examine this phenomenon and determine how religious liberty is impacted by the rights of citizenship, we'll need to look at how legislation, along with weaponized religious practices, deny the rights of African American citizens and prohibit Black UCC LGBTQ persons from practicing their religion. Let's begin by defining some terms. According to the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty is the freedom to believe and exercise or act upon religious conscience without unnecessary interference by the government. Just as religious liberty involves freedom to practice religion, it also means freedom not to practice religion. The rights of citizenship as defined by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services are freedom to express yourself, freedom to worship as you wish, right to prompt fair trial by jury, the right to vote in elections for public officials, the right to apply for federal employment requiring U.S. citizenship, the right to run for elected office, and freedom to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All right. Now that we've defined some terms, let's briefly talk about how African American LGBTQ persons are denied their basic rights of citizenship in this country and the Black UCC Church. We'll look at just two impactful issues that verify the hypothesis. As defined by the USCIS, as American citizens, we have the right to worship as you wish and the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. First, let's look at the right to worship as you wish, because it is core to this conversation. When members of the LGBTQ community attend a UCC church that is not open and affirming or radically inclusive, there is a good chance that they will not be able to worship as they wish. If the UCC church embraces an exclusionary theology that characterizes LGBTQ persons negatively, those persons may experience alienation, objectification, and feel generally unwelcome. In the notes of his book, No Longer Slaves, Galatians, and African American Experience, Brad Braxton mentions that Paul dealt with the apparent marginalization of Galatian converts by Jewish Christian preachers, who led them to believe that their conversion experience was just not enough. In non-open and affirming African American UCC churches, LGBTQ persons are told a similar story. By openly excluding these Christian converts, preachers are informing this community that their conversion is not enough. Not only should they accept the salvation offered by Christ, but by implication, they should also be converted to heterosexuality in order to be considered members of the Christian family. This kind of traditional weaponized church practice violates the spirit of Christian conversion and membership, but also violates the rights of American citizenship to worship as we please. The practice of excluding members by virtue of their sexual orientation is not covered by the Supreme Court ruling in Hurley versus Irish American Gay, Lesbian, and Bisexual Group of Boston, where the court decided in favor of excluding groups, meaning the LGBTQ groups, who impart a message organizers of a large protest did not want to include in their demonstrations. So, by acting in this manner that openly excludes this community or group, Black UCC churches, or any church for that matter, deny the rights of American citizens to worship as they wish, participate in voluntary associations, and thereby exercise religious freedom. Secondly, let's look at the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as it involves the topics such as marriage, parenting, and even burying our dead. In the recent Supreme Court decision on same-gender marriage in Ogerfeld v. Hodges, Justice Kennedy, writing for the majority, said of LGBTQ persons, their hope is not to be condemned to live in loneliness, excluded from one of civilization's oldest institutions. They ask for equal dignity in the eyes of the law. The Constitution grants them that right. As a result, the law of the United States now includes the right of American citizens to same-gender marriage. However, various states have refused to acknowledge the national jurisdiction of this ruling and have developed workarounds called religious exemption laws and statutes that cite religious belief as a reason not to comply with the law. These exemptions promote the citation of certain religious beliefs as justification for discrimination specifically against LGBTQ community and thereby prevent their right to the pursuit of happiness. Government entities that provide government services to American citizens, such as issuing marriage licenses or the placement of foster or adoptive children to same-gender couples, or in Texas, not allowing coverage of workers' benefits to same-gender married couples, are in direct violation of the protections afforded legally married different-gendered couples. Truthfully, this could also include UCC non-inclusive Black churches that refuse to marry same-gender couples or baptize their children or even bury their dead. In an interview with Reverend Melissa McQueen Simmons of Many Voices concerning the denial of proper burial practices, she told of instances as recently as 2018 wherein transgender persons were denied the right to be buried reflecting their chosen gender identity. Reverend McQueen Simmons said, as she had witnessed funeral services wherein the transgendered person's selected identity was ignored and replaced by the church as the person's birth gender. Jameson mentions in his article, Material Culture and Social Death, African American Burial Practices, the control of symbolic instruments such as mortuary practices by slave owners and overseers was an attempt to alienate the slaves from claims of belonging to a legitimate social order. It can also be said of the church practice of denying the selected gender identity of the transgendered person to be displayed at funeral services. These hurtful actions could be labeled as violations of the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness even in death, as well as the denial of the freedom of religion and right to worship as they wish. These dishonoring practices and violations to the rights of American LGBTQ citizens also profoundly impact their faith. As Cone noted about the enslaved, that there were profound contradictions that slavery, segregation, and lynching posed for their faith, there is a comparable impact that discrimination, alienation, and exclusion poses for African American LGBTQ persons. Cone says, suffering always poses the deepest test of faith, radically challenging its authenticity and meaning. Those in the UCC LGBTQ community have used their suffering to spark action and determination to continue to fight against the denial of their rights of citizenship in the country and, unfortunately, in the church. So what can we do about it? Solutions may include exposing Black UCC non-open and affirming churches to the tenets of Black theology that focus on celebrating the divine through the Black historical and current experience. Additionally, perhaps exposure to womanist theology that focuses worship on the divine through the lens of Black women, to include the African American community and the care and inclusion of Black LGBTQ community. Generally introducing a more inclusive and welcoming theology rather than an exclusive, punitive one. Number 2, encourage Black UCC churches to create welcoming and inclusive spaces where all members flourish and embrace the diversity of the congregation and the kingdom of God. Number 3, legally, we should systematically work together to overturn all federal and state laws that would diminish the rights of Black American LGBTQ persons, encouraging states to adopt a race/gender/orientation/religious neutral position to provide equal access to grant all its citizens under the law. The fight for religious liberty is one worth waging all-out war. The protection of the rights of African American LGBTQ citizens to have religious freedom, including worshiping as they wish, as well as the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, is within the liberal interpretation of the United States Constitution. It is also within the will of God that we love God and love each other.